Yo, it's locked and loaded, grinding for commission. Clients getting funded, that's Nick and Anthony's vision. Tune in, real talk, no clone, we on it. It's the vibe, it's the grind, it's locked and loaded.
All right. Okay. Hooah! Okay. No. Thanks so much for tuning in again to see us. We have Michael Verrelli here from Remax joining us today. He's going to give us a little bit of his insights from the realtor lens. Tell us, maybe Mike, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in the business over 11 years. Currently with Remax Premier, service the GTA, whether it's buying, selling, leasing, commercial. That's about it.
Perfect. Well, I know you're a busy guy, so thank you so much for taking time out of your day. What are you seeing right now when it comes from, maybe if I could read, but I'll try that again. What are you seeing in the market right now from buyers and sellers?
What I'm seeing right now is that, buyers are still very hesitant to make decisions. So from the listing side of things, sellers have to be patient because those decisions are taking a lot longer. I think buyers are starting to realize the sky's not gonna fall in the market. So they're starting to come off the fence, but there's still a lot of hesitation with rates or if prices are gonna go down. But I've seen in the last few weeks, activity has jumped up. Doing open houses and stuff, there's a lot more activity than there was previously. So buyers, they're still a little hesitant. Things going on in the world, trying to time a market, which I'm sure we all know is not possible.
Impossible.
Exactly, right? So that's from the buyer perspective. On the seller side, you're still having some sellers think that, prices from 5-6 years ago are still here. Unfortunately, they're not. Could they get back there one day? Absolutely. But in the short term, they have to come to realize that prices are the price, and, the market will dictate kind of where something is worth, not saying, okay, well, the house down the street sold for X amount, or it's listed for, say $1 million. And then the conversation is like, okay, but it's been listed for 120 days. So that's an indication of the price is not there. Let's look at what is sold, right? So it's identifying and actually educating the seller in a sense to say, look, here's what has been selling, and let's keep an eye on things and see where the market's going in that particular area.
Do you think buyers or sellers are more concerned with house prices or rates right now?
I think rates are very important because, that's what they're gonna carry each month. So I think that's important, but they also price conscious. So if there is something priced lower, I see an abundance of people coming just because of the price, right? The reality is like, can they afford it, right? And, I think that a lot of buyers, what they do is they look, say, okay, well, I make X amount a month, so I can afford this house. Yeah. But that's when kind of working with professionals like yourselves are important, because you break that down, and it's just not about your mortgage, it's about your property tax, it's about your insurance, it's about utilities.
Cash flow, yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? So, that's why it's great to work with guys like yourselves, because you understand the bigger picture. It's just not about, carrying the mortgage. It's like other factors that, all different people have, whether they have kids or parents that live with them or whatever the situation. There's other factors outside just the mortgage payment.
Okay, good. What do you think the biggest misconception buyers have, when they start their search?
I think it's, a lot of times they think they can afford more than what they can, right? I think that, just because sometimes they have a bigger down payment, they have to understand, like, you have to be able to service the debt with their income, right? I think that, a lot of people sometimes overshoot what they want. So I always say you have to look at what your negotiables are in looking for a property and your non-negotiables. Identify those. We'd all want to live in a massive home, but maybe that's something that's 10 years down the road. So just getting into the market, buying something that in an area that there's value and possible appreciation is very important. And that's what I'm seeing as well, is like they say in real estate, location, location, location. And now it's coming to, I guess, fruition, or it's showing its face right now.
Do you think, when the first-time home buyers, do you see a lot of them kind of coming in and kind of want this, ready house, and I just want turn the key and everything's got to be perfect? Like, wasn't there a time when you kind of started somewhere and gradually got to that place? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think, in general, we want things right away. It's just part of the evolution of
The want and need.
Exactly, right? So, what I tell first-time buyers is, like, you have time on your side, right? So the faster that you get into something, whether it's a condo, whether it's, a home where maybe you can live upstairs and rent basement, there has to be some type of
Give and take.
Give and take, or I wouldn't say struggle, but sacrifice in a sense where, okay, yes, it may not be something I want to live for the rest of my life, but you're getting into the market, you're building equity, appreciation value. There's a lot of factors that help you once you take that first step. And I think that's the hardest. I mean, even for myself, when I bought my first property, it was difficult. I was in a different career. I wasn't, making the income that I was happy with. But I said to myself, I broke it down and looked at the numbers and said, okay, this makes sense. And, now at my age, that mortgage is almost done.
So how old are you? Just
I'm kidding. I think that's what people have to look at. It's not about just today. It's about building for the future. Yeah. They always say Rome wasn't built in a day. So you have to start somewhere. But
yeah, and it's how does it fit your overall plan too?
Absolutely.
Right? If it's an investment property, is this a long-term hold? Is this going to be a cash play down the road to supplement as a pension, or whatever the case may be, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
No, it's a great point. So you work with a lot of buyers, obviously. How many of them would you say actually get pre-approved? I guess during the process, before the process.
I would say, that's the first question I ask, because if you don't understand what you can afford, how can we start our search? Yeah. Right? How many get properly pre-approved? That's, very difficult to say. Sometimes because you're relying on individuals to say, okay, have you gone to the bank or a broker to speak to them? And most of them say, yeah. And then when push comes to shove, they've provided their income, but that line of credit that they had causes some issues. Yeah. Right? Exactly, right? So I always stress the fact that it's very important to get a pre-approval, just because you understand ballpark what you can afford. Now, I always say too, just because you can afford $1 million mortgage
doesn't mean you're gonna
exceed that, get to that limit. Yeah. It's just that it's for your own understanding to say, okay, this is what we're looking for. Is it realistic? Yes or no? Right?
I think Ant can attest to this. So many times you talk to people when they do a pre-approval, it's like, okay, what's the maximum I'm pre-approved for? It's $1 million. Okay, great. What are the payments? Well, they're $5,500. Whoa. I only want to pay $3,500, right? You know, we've talked about this before too, right? So I mean, I think that's, you know, to your point, you know, it's important.
Very.
We got a question here from one of our callers here. It's Gary. Gary's got a question from back home. Gary's on the line. He wants to know, when you bought your first place, did you get pre-approved?
I did.
Yeah, awesome.
I did. And, you know, I actually bought it privately, which, you know.
Didn't work with a realtor, come on, Mike.
I did not. I did not, but I was actually not in the real estate game at that point. So I actually learned a lot from it, and the importance of actually working with an agent, because some of the information that was provided wasn't correct. So it wasn't that it hindered anything with the deal, but it would have been like
learning.
Exactly, and it would have been nice to know ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure.
When do you know a deal might be in trouble?
When a deal might be in trouble, I think when there's limited communication. I think that, you know, when things seem, you know, speaking to the other agent, their stories aren't kind of marrying up.
Jiving.
You know, the biggest is question, or the biggest response is, "Oh, don't worry about it." And when someone says that,
right?
it's like,
worry about it.
yeah,
You don't got a problem.
yeah.
You know, I would say there's sometimes an issue, or it's, "Oh, we're having a little bit of difficulty with getting financing," right? And then, you know, my question is, then my question is, well, you had a 7-day financing condition, so why at the 11th hour are you calling me saying that there's a financing issue, right? And then from there, it's kind of asking the questions to say, okay, is this person being truthful at this point, or is they making something up just to kind of try and buy extra time? And then at that point, you know, it's speaking to the client to say, hey, listen, this is the situation. I know it might be alarming to you, but know that there's a solution to every problem. And, you know, you have my full support. I'm not going to leave you here to have it deal with yourself. And then directing them to the professionals, because I'm sure you guys have this issue sometimes where someone will come to you and say, "Oh, I saw a rate of, 2%. How come I can't get that? Or my neighbor got 2%. Why can't I get that?" Right? So it's like, I really try and stay in my lane. My profession is real estate. Your profession is finance. And then, lawyer's profession is the law. So I think it's very important as a professional in any business to kind of stay in your lane, because if you cross that, then you give maybe false hope to the consumer, which is not good.
So like in your example, let's say you're dealing with, you're working with the buyer, and you have a COF, condition of finance, that's expiring. It's the 5th day. How would you approach working with the other agent? What courtesy, I guess, would you extend? How would you like that to go, should you need like an extra day or two? What do you think the best course of action in that case would be?
Well, I think it's not waiting till the last day. I think it's having open communication with the mortgage broker from the onset. Once the deal is complete, I usually tell my buyers that send me the broker or the bank's information so I can directly forward it to them, and then have that conversation to say, look, they have a 5-day financing condition. If you can keep me updated, because I don't want to leave it to the last minute, as courtesy to the seller's agent, that, if we do need an extension, I'm saying it on day 3 or 4, not day 5 at 5 o'clock, when, emotions can get
A little wild.
a little, exactly, right? Where, you know, you don't know, most of the time we don't know what the seller's position is, but you could lose a deal because of it.
So, like, what makes a mortgage broker valuable to you as a realtor?
A lot of things. I mean, I think dealing with you guys over the years, it's about transparency. It's about understanding the client's needs. I think with a broker, you know, you have a lot of different products that you can provide to people, and you know, I think that's a great tool for any buyer. It's important to me that I have trust with the broker or, you know, any finance person. So
you've been in the industry for some time, like you said earlier. What would you say differentiates a good broker and a great broker?
it's not transactional. You're looking at the bigger picture, right? Like I said before, it's just not about the mortgage payment. It's about the other costs of just closing a deal, and then future costs, whether it's maintenance on the property, whether it's, you know, insurance, all those things. I think a great professional will take that big picture and present it to the client, right? Oftentimes it's just like, okay, yeah, and then boom, you're in a firm deal, and then there's issues with closing, and
You got a stick handle.
Exactly. Yeah, and we don't like stick handling
No.
through the neutral zone with our head
Don't be
down.
looking at the puck, I'll tell you that much.
Exactly.
Sometimes your head's down, boom.
Exactly. So it's very important to work with a professional that's committed to doing a good job.
We like to say the overall excellence. You know, we just want to
Yeah.
make sure that, you know, you can live.
Yeah.
You know, we said this in the past. Like, people just come in and say, I just want to get, like, what's my max?
Yeah.
It's the worst question I've been asked.
Yeah, I think one thing I always tell people, and you know, you don't want to be house rich, cash poor. You know, just
Absolutely.
because, you know, then, you know, you got to go out for dinner every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, you want to buy those things.
Steak and eggs ain't cheap. So, Mike, let's have a little fun with this one, because I know, you know, we've all had like tons and tons of experiences. But let's just go. What do you think, like, your craziest transaction might have been?
One of your most memorable.
Yeah.
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 One of my most memorable? Actually, it was a few years ago. I got a phone call from a lady, and she goes, Michael, you probably don't remember me, but I came to one of your open houses. And I was at the time, it was when I first started. And she goes, I brought my mother, and my mother, when we walked out, said, I want that boy to sell my house when I die.
It's amazing.
So she called me and she told me that, and I was like, I didn't know who the lady was.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where it's like, you know, I think if you're committed to what you're doing, these types of things come, right? It's
I
about
got
being,
goosebumps right there, buddy. That's wild.
yeah. So that was kind of one of those, I guess, heartfelt moments that I remember. But there's many of them that are good moments.
It's fantastic. I want to share a nice little story about Mike, because, you know, what people don't know is Mike really does go above and beyond. He's one of the reasons why we work with this chap. But, you know, one Saturday we were playing golf, okay? And at the end of the round, this guy had to go somewhere. I'm like, dude, where are you going? It was like Sunday afternoon, whatever the case was. But he was going to help a client, like, move their couches out. It was an old lady, I'll never forget, because he took this call. He had to go help an old lady move a couch, take some stuff out of her house. Like, he just goes above and beyond. I don't think she was moving. I think it was just either an old client or whatever the case might be. But this gentleman definitely goes above and beyond, not in just those situations, but he's really a fantastic guy, fantastic realtor, really knows his stuff. And let's get it.
Great realtor, even better person. That sums up Mike Verrelli. That's it, bud.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for coming to spend some time with Anthony and myself. We know you got to go out and put up some signs, or I don't know. What do you? I'm sure you're busy though, right?
Yeah.
So
I appreciate the opportunity to come as your guest today, and always look forward to working
Actually,
with you
I
guys.
have one more question, and maybe you want to add it. You don't want to add it. Put on the bloopers. Why didn't you wear a blazer? I love you, buddy.